Welcome to the Mismatch. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me, he does every week from TheRinger.com, is Dave Jacoby. Jacoby!
What's happening, Verno? What a Christmas we had. What a Christmas. I'm on the court and off, just across the board, an amazing day yesterday.
It was honestly everything we could have bargained for, more than we could have bargained for. You had the NBA truly putting its best foot forward. You had amazing basketball.
Yep.
You had a totally unnecessary trade report.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Disney stream. I was like, yes, that was very unnecessary. Didn't make any sense whatsoever.
You also had an unnecessary Disney stream. You had injuries. You had some foolishness.
Joel Embiid falling over in pregame.
We had it all. We had it all. So it all got started yesterday with the Spurs and the Knicks, and then just wall to wall until bedtime last night. But let's start from one of the late games, which was the Lakers and the Warriors. And there has been this frequent lament that, hey, part of the NBA's problem is that they keep on pushing Steph and LeBron at us, and those guys are older now, and you know, they're not pushing the young stars as much. And I felt like yesterday was such an unbelievable example of how a young star was pushed early in the day, and he delivered tenfold in Wemby, which we will get to. And then you have this primetime game, which is Steph and LeBron, and both of them, if you were just a non-basketball fan and tuned that in, and watch that game, you would never in a million years believe that they are the years into their careers that they are. But I think if you're Adam Silver, this is the best of days. Forget whatever your ratings report is going to say this morning. You, especially in the midst of all the conversations that have been going on for the past couple of weeks, and the noise has gotten so loud about ratings and style of play and everything else, yesterday was the absolute best of the best example of the NBA at its finest. And I think if you're him, you've got to be thrilled.
Well, we'll start with this. Let's hear from Steph. Let's hear from LeBron James after the game.
I love the NFL, but Christmas is our day.
Couple things. Number one, I was watching the football games too. I was. They were pretty good, But number two is, I'm glad you brought up the sort of narratives, because I'm always going to love the games. They shoot too many threes, whatever. Ratings are down. I don't care. It doesn't change my experience whatsoever. But one of the narratives that I want to talk to you about, which was on full display in this game, was this whole, the end is nigh for LeBron and Steph. Like, the idea that this is their retirement tour. Like, these are two of the best players in the NBA. This is not Vince Carter in the corner on the Hawks that can't dunk anymore. Right. Like, these are two of the most impactful, effective players in the National Basketball Association. They're not retiring. Like, Steph Curry can do what he did at the end of the game and go absolutely nuclear and bring that team back from the brink. LeBron James can be the conductor in front of the orchestra that is the Lakers offense with whatever players he has and will them to a win in a big spot in a game. The idea that this is the last time, this might be the last time we see these two. We don't know how many more faceoffs these two have. Like, they're still two of the best players in the league. I'm not going to sign their retirement papers yet. I'm not at all.
You had Steph Curry have 8 points in the last 26 seconds, and I don't think there were any of us that were watching that did not think back to the Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
That's how it felt, especially down the stretch, where it's like, they've got this guy. He's going to take shots from all over the place. The degree of difficulty on the 2 threes is just crazy.
Well, the first one in the corner was nuts because LeBron's in his face. All 20,000 people in there know he's shooting that shot. He's not going to up fake and reposition. Like, he's letting that thing fly. He's a little bit behind the backboard.
Yes.
Arcing it over LeBron. And when it's in the air, we all know it's going in. The second one, I was trying to think of like Draymond Green. He's really he's like a fullback for a really good running back. You know what I mean? Like, he gets none of the accolades, but a lot of Steph's success is sort of that partnership with Draymond in that one to tie the game. Draymond is basically like puts out his arms and fully extends to set a pick and then lets go and acts like he's getting run over. And Steph was just naked on that. Like, there's no reason for him to be that open.
Okay, and with that game and all the drama that happened down the stretch, and also the games as a whole, this is one of my pet projects that I've been talking about throughout the year. I'd be remiss if I did not mention that one of the reasons that we had such high-quality basketball yesterday is, and this is not conspiracy theory, because last year it was passed off almost as conspiracy theory with what happened to the games post-All-Star break to make them more watchable. One of the things that I have talked about throughout this year that showed up yesterday, and I will absolutely believe that there was a discussion prior to these games that were played. The amount of flow and the amount of basketball that was going on yesterday all day long. I refuse to believe that was a mistake, because what happens is you and I are hardcore fans.
Yes.
I went to a basketball game on Monday night that had 52 free throws in it. 52. I went back and looked just on Monday night. The Grizzlies and the Clippers had 52 free throws. The Blazers and the Mavs had 53 free throws. The Jazz and the Cavs had 49 free throws. The Celtics and the Magic had 48 free throws. You go back and look at yesterday's games that took place. You had 35, 32, 33, 24. And then the only one that crossed over 40 was by far the worst of the games, which was the Suns and the Nuggets.
Yeah.
The one with the least amount of flow that took place yesterday. And so you had all day yesterday, because then what happens? Now you're adding to the flow. You're not calling all this touch foul stuff. You're letting guys run up and down and have 5, 6, 7 consecutive possessions without a stoppage in play. Much more like what we talked about throughout the summer. And like, why do we love this FIBA stuff so much? And what we talked about at the end of last year as well. You had this flow to the games that was taking place all day long. And then what happened? You didn't have pissed off players. You didn't have pissed off refs. And you didn't have pissed off coaches that then are so frustrated. What are they doing, Jacoby? Review. Yep. And now we're sitting around and we're stopping. Did you notice yesterday when you were watching all these games, one of the things that we didn't have games ruined and mired in stoppages and reviews and ruining the endings of game. Like, that didn't take place. That's not coincidence. This was hey, let's put our best foot forward. Let's let people watch the greatest athletes in the world be the greatest athletes in the world. I will never in a million years believe that it is coincidence. Because again, I went to a game on Monday night. I just listed different games that took place on Monday night. Unless you want to tell me this just randomly happened where we got to watch all of this great basketball take place on Christmas Day when fans like you and I are sitting there watching, Hornets and Wizards endings with 20-minute reviews on a Tuesday night. Like, look, and I'm all for it. All for it. What?
Yeah. Okay, listen. I love the games. And I love the results. I love the flow. How many times do you hear the announcers say, especially during that Lakers-Warriors game, this one's got a good pace to it.
Yes.
There's not a lot of stoppages. Like, they didn't even know what was happening because they're so used to the herky-jerkiness. But I'm not going to let you sit here and act like there was a group chat between Adam Silver and the referees
100%.
saying, like, hey, guys, do your best today.
100%
That's not what happens in the real world. I'll tell you what happened is...
It happened last season.
Are you going to let me respond?
It happened.
You're going to let me respond. What happened here is it's just the lights are brighter, the stage is bigger, there are more eyeballs, and everyone's just a little more dialed in to their job. And the ref's job is not just to call the fouls, but to also be cognizant of the overall product and to manage the flow of the game. I don't think this was engineered. I don't think that Adam Silver met with somebody in a coffee shop corner and said, listen, make sure you get the word out.
I don't believe that
we
either.
need a better game on Christmas Day. That's not what happened. There was no communication. This is not a coincidence, but it's not as engineered as I'm going to let you get to. And frankly, I don't even want to talk about it. I love the foul stuff, but I love the basketball stuff so much more. Like, I thought it was fantastic, and I think you're kind of cuckoo for thinking that it was like engineered from some Illuminati circle meeting in a conference room in the sky.
Oh, it happened last year, Jacoby.
That happened. That happened at the All-Star break. That happened. But I don't think
so you think it didn't happen for Christmas Day, especially when you're against the NFL? This isn't a conspiracy. This is real life, bro. I watch the NBA every single night. This was so obviously called different yesterday. Obviously.
We can agree to disagree, but I think it's not because some sort of clandestine meeting and messaging from on high of the basketball gods. I think it was more just like everyone being a little bit more cognizant of the product that's being put out there because the lights are so bright. And it's an unspoken thing that happened.
They needed to have their best day.
And
because
they did.
The NFL tried to take it.
And they did, especially in this LeBron-Steph game. And LeBron, after Austin Reeves wins the game, and he says right into the camera, NFL, like, this is our day. And after a performance like that, you can say something like that. But I was watching the football too. I was watching the football too. But
no lie.
I want to talk about the game. You watched the football. Yeah.
I flipped over to the football. Neither game. In fact, both games were pathetic. Beyonce,
these were competitive.
Beyonce, that was worth the price of admission.
I think we should just replace Santa Claus with Beyonce, and she should every Christmas come into our homes and perform.
That was unbelievable. Honestly, the only thing I watched from that game, like it was so non-competitive, and then I saw somebody tweet, "Everybody be quiet, Beyonce's coming on," and I turned it on. And so I watched the Beyonce halftime show.
It was better than any Super Bowl performance I've seen since Beyonce. Oh no, the LA one was good. I like the LA Super Bowl performance. It was the second best Super Bowl performance I've seen since the previous Beyonce Super Bowl performance.
To your point about them putting their best foot forward and how good those games were, I ran and grabbed my son last night as I was watching that Warriors-Lakers game as it was coming down to the end because he was playing with the stuff that he had gotten for Christmas. Yeah. I ran in there and I said, "Hey, man, come in here." And we watched the end of that game. And then it's funny you mentioned Reeves. You watch the end of the game. The Curry shots, obviously, we're going crazy over those. And then the last thing, I have not seen him since then. He walked out of the room where we were watching the game, and he was like, "Nice defense, Wiggins," and like closed the door and walked out of the room.
That was his takeaway?
Yeah.
Two titans, two of the most famous people on the planet, two absolute titans slugging it out in the middle of the ring, going down to the wire on the biggest stages in the biggest game of the biggest day. And he walks away. Takeaway is like, "Stay in front, Wiggs."
Well, look, He's got a thing for Austin Reeves, too, because it was Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura. No. They did the Grizzlies in a couple of years ago in the playoffs in game one, and Austin Reeves was like barking at everything. So he for sure did not want to see Austin Reeves get a game winner. So he was like, "Nice defense, Wiggins." I mean, it was a straight line drive.
No, see, I want to say this about that particular play is I think that, because I saw you say straight line drive in the group chat, and I think that the jab step to the right as a right-handed player and the ball fake, simultaneous jab step and ball fake to the right. Because when you're playing defense, no matter if you're playing in the NBA on Christmas or if you're just playing pickup, you're just assuming everyone's going right all the time and then going left as quickly as you did. I thought it was a good move. I really did. I thought it was great. And then, so I might be active on FanDuel, Chris Vernon.
Uh-oh.
And I might have said to myself, you know what? Christmas, I think LeBron's going to get a triple-double. And they had a bet that was like anybody gets a triple-double. It was great odds. And I put 40 hard-earned American dollars on that with great odds. And I was like, well, LeBron's got 3 assists, so this is over. right? I just scratched that up as a loss. Going into break, Mike Breen is like, Austin Reeves, 18 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists, or 10 rebounds and 9 assists. And I was like, what? And he ended up getting a triple-double. He ended up scoring the game-winning shot. And not only that, I don't think this is getting enough sort of like attention based on the very sort of little reaction I've seen from the game. But Austin Reeves, a little emotional after the game.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not really an emotional person, but there was a quick second where I thought I might tear up, and that doesn't happen a lot. But it's Christmas, like I said out there. I know my parents are back home watching. I know my brother's probably up in Germany right now. It's sitting around with family watching the game, and that means a lot to me. I say it all the time. I'm not necessarily supposed to be in this position. I got lucky, got my foot in the door, and took advantage of an opportunity. And now I'm sitting here, like you said, on Christmas with a game winner and a triple-double.
I mean, like the white guy from Alabama with the sweep to the right, Arkansas, whatever.
I mean, you are such an East Coast. Oh, my God.
Are those even two different states?
Are you
different
serious?
States? There's one's Bill Clinton
right
and
now?
one's Nick Saban, right? One's Bill Clinton, one's Nick Saban, right? That's how it works?
Unbelievable,
Anyway,
bro.
With the sweepy haircut, and he loves golf and the aw shucks attitude, just getting emotional, thinking about his family on Christmas Day and making the most of an opportunity. You know what they talk about the NFL being scripted? The whole Christmas NBA was this. Like, maybe I'm with you. Maybe I'm a conspiracy guy.
Yeah.
Maybe this is all just out of a Hollywood writer's room. That's what it felt like.
Well, look, we got the totally weird Anthony Davis injury, and he's going to the locker room where
everyone was. And Embiid fell over, and Wemby was great, and LeBron was amazing, and Steph hit threes. Everyone was just playing their role to a T. I mean, to an absolute T.
If you said this was directed by someone, you say, okay, and now we're gonna have Anthony Davis turn his ankle, just running down the court, just running down the court.
I watched the replay. I was like, what?
There's no way.
How many times have you just been like running around or walking and your ankle just completely tweaks? I've had it tweak, but to the point where you like can't come back in the game. That was nuts.
Hey, and then Kendrick Perkins at halftime, he's like,
tape that thing up and get back
out there. It's Christmas. I love it.
I love it so much.
So
Perk
good.
Is such a treasure.
Yeah.
God, this game, man. I got a question for you now from just like a basketball standpoint before we move on to the next game. Golden State started 12-3. Do you remember that? Their defense. Oh, yeah, the contender.
Strength
climbing
in numbers.
Up in the West. Yeah, strength in numbers. We're playing 12 guys. They've now, I forgot who I was talking to. I see you know all of this. And they've now lost 11 of 14. I forgot who I was talking to. Let's just move on to the next game because I don't want to give you the opportunity to discuss the fall from grace for the Warriors and Steph, but it really felt like this team needs more offensive firepower.
I hear there's a guy in Miami that might want to be there.
You know, like whenever these things happen, this sort of like report from Shams of what he has reported before about Jimmy Butler wanting to go somewhere, I spend the whole day being like, all right, well, how do we get him to the Suns?
Okay.
How do we get him to the Warriors? How do we get him to the Spurs? Because all these stupid teams are in the Jimmy Butler hunt, and I'm just like, none of this makes any sense.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk about, let's just get this out of the way. I will say, as I was watching them last night, I was like, I think Butler would be fantastic here and make me view them in a much different way. He's on this timeline. They're on this timeline. Like, you got to get this done now if you've got Steph and Draymond at the course where they are within the context of their careers. As I'm watching that game, there's no doubt that you're watching that and you're going, the major piece in that has to be like a sign and trade and Jonathan Kuminga, right? Who wants more like $35 million than the $30 million that they were talking about with him. And I watch that and I'm thinking to myself, there's just I would be absolutely blown away if Pat Riley wants him.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank
there's
you.
no
It's like,
way
so
Pat
the
Riley
whole-
likes him. I cannot stand him as a basketball player.
We want to build around Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. And those two players I love. And Bam isn't having the best year, but I believe in him long-term as an asset and as a basketball player. But does the trio of Hero, Kuminga, and Adebayo scream championship contender to you? And are you going to sign Kuminga to another 4 years, hoping that he turns into Jonathan Kuminga because he's shown flashes of Jonathan Kuminga?
I honestly think, and I know that he said, look, if people remember, he had this quote, terrible quote, just about his mental well-being and saying, like, there's other people that would quit if they were me. And I was like, all right, we're going a little far on that, right? Just how he gets dicked around in the starting lineup, out of the starting lineup, all that stuff, whatever. But you watch the guy play, and to me, I'll put me on record, whether it is the Warriors or whether it's any other team, I think it's a mistake to sign him to a huge contract.
And here's another problem, Chris Vernon. I feel the same way about Jimmy Butler. not just what you're getting in return for Jimmy Butler. If you trade for Jimmy Butler and you're the Warriors, you're just like, I'm not giving you an extension. We got 1 year. If you want to pick up that player option, maybe 2 years. But I don't want 38-year-old Jimmy Butler making $50 million on my sheets. And fair. I don't know a team that does. So that's when you talk about wherever. I mean, the Nuggets would make some sense, I guess. But like, if again, does Michael Porter Jr. added to Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo make you a championship team? No. Like, I don't see a natural trade partner for Jimmy Butler at all. Did you hear he didn't go to the Christmas party? Jimmy Butler didn't go to the Christmas party.
I'm unsurprised.
Didn't go to
Houston still seems like the most likely.
Did you go to the Ringer Christmas party?
I live in Memphis.
I don't even know if there is one. I don't think there is one. Okay. I was just trying to make you feel bad.
All right. Let's talk about another team that did try to load up on stars because we don't know if the Warriors are going to be able to do that. The Sixers. And scriptwriter comes in, Jacoby. All three played.
All three.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Wait. No. Paul George didn't play.
Yes, he did.
Wait, he was in that game?
He was wearing a Caleb Martin uniform.
Oh, that's right. Oh, okay. They had a big three. Three.
Daryl Morey, when he went and got Caleb Martin, he's like, this guy's a Celtic killer. And that's the team that we're going to have to beat. And I mean, he had to just be like,
dude,
he had to be a cloud nine. He's like, this is exactly what I envisioned. Them not paying attention to Caleb Martin and Caleb Martin just mowing them down. And Caleb Martin, 7 threes, 23 points. He says after the game, I know the way this team's going to guard me. I know I'm not going to get as much attention as the other guys. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like if a guy mowed me down in the playoffs, he would be a little higher on the whiteboard in terms of how we're dealing with him. Because Caleb Martin is a problem for them.
After 4 threes, it's like, all right, maybe we can switch up coverages, especially with the way Paul George is playing. But I thought one of my biggest takeaways from that game I found interesting, and I'm not going to read too much into it, so just take this for what it is. But in the fourth quarter, they went on this great run with PG and Embiid on the bench. It was like Maxey and Caleb Martin and like Yabu. And it was like, honestly, like they kind of got out of their normal rotation because it was going so well that Nick Nurse was just kind of like, just chill over there, guys. It'll be fine. And then they come in the game, and that is when the Celtics make this kind of like semi comeback to make it competitive at the end. I just found that interesting. It was just like,
And let me just mention, I've already brought up the FIBA and the Olympics and how much we loved it with Steph and LeBron, with the flow of play. Also, Yabu, little bit of a throwback. That felt like Olympics Yabu.
Yabu, he's had some games. It was after the game. I think it was Maxey that was talking. And he was like, it was Maxey and Martin, I think, did the interview together, right? It's in between games, so I'm like, putting together toys and helping my kids or whatever. And I got half an eye on this. And Maxey's like, yeah, well, we brought in 7 or 8 guys, so there's going to be some adjustments. And I looked at it and I was like, Yeah, they did. Like,
Yeah.
There's a lot of new bodies there. You got Martin, you got Yabu, you got obviously Paul George. Like, there are new bodies there. So maybe I did walk away from this being like, maybe there is a path where the Sixers are a formidable threat.
And but we do have to mention Drew Holiday, the absence of him.
Yep.
Porzingis,
KP left.
Yeah, lost him by halftime. Almost lost Embiid at the pregame shoot-around.
Just, we've all seen the clip by now.
That's outrageous.
What was that? Imagine you're the security guard. Your job is to just like make sure no one like runs onto the court and tries to tackle somebody, right? So you got your arms folded, and you've been to pregames before. And if you guys are listening at home, you've never been. It's a very low energy kind of like, it's called like, it's a very like walk through environment. Like it's not like there's no music on. You're just kind of like sitting there, and the security guard is bored. He's got his arms folded and he's just staring at empty stands. And next thing you know, this 7'3", 300-pound dude falls on you and knocks it and twists his ankle. And then one of the like main players in the game is on the ground because he tripped over your foot. I just felt bad for that guy. I hope he just got the rest of the day off.
I mean, you couldn't even believe it was real when the reporter started tweeting about it.
Oh, you definitely. Whenever you saw
no
that,
way.
You had
This
to
is
double
parody.
check. I double checked it.
Yeah. This is parody. This is parody.
I'm starting to lean a little bit more towards conspiracy theory than I was earlier in the pod. Like maybe this.
I'm winning you over.
This is all the multiverse. This is all the multiverse.
There's a pregame shoot around, and I let me just mention in the pregame shoot around because you're talking about how you know, Steph shooting like half court shots, and most of the guys are just getting a warm up, shooting threes, getting stretched out a little bit, right? There is one guy though, if you ever go early, bro, Giannis goes into full on pouring sweat.
That's terrifying.
It's
well,
like
it's
like a real workout. And when he is done,
terrifying.
He's like pouring. And it's like, what is this guy do? Like, there is a game. Yes. No. He's different than everybody else. You see him when he gets done with this like pregame warm-up, and he's like Jokic may go out there, I'm not kidding, and take like one shot and brick it and walk back to the locker room. Right?
Just walk out with his little penguin walk. Yeah. He walks like the penguin, like Colin Farrell. Let's drudge out there, take a couple shots, make a couple jokes, smile at the coach, and then go back.
That's right. Let's get to Spurs Knicks. 20 years old. I mean, can we just do the full Jacoby mea culpa? We started the season with you doing the lose Benyama thing. I mean, you want to talk about a wrong side of history. My God. You just watched.
I was absolutely right. I was absolutely right at the time, and I'm still right now. And his success is largely because he listens to the podcast and has made some adjustments. So you're welcome. I'm basically like a coach, like a mentorship. It's like an apprentice-apprentice, sort of like Padawan Jedi relationship that Wembenyama and I have. So
I'm gonna give a quick little shout out. This showed up on my timeline yesterday. This is from a guy named John Gondelman. It said, "I started describing Wemby to my wife and realized that between his name, physical attributes, and resume, it sounded like I was talking about an imaginary friend."
It is like
how is he a real thing?
It's not just the height, because we've seen like Manute Bol or whatever, Yao Ming. We've seen it's the way he moves.
But it is kind of the height.
Well, the height, obviously, like it's the first thing that jumps out at you. But like we've seen tall players, but watch Joel Embiid run up and down the court, and then watch Wembenyama run up and down the court. Do you see what Towns was asked afterwards about the two of them? They're like, he's like, oh, so you and Wembenyama, there's some similarities in your game and this, and he's like, no, dude, I'm 7 feet. He's like, this guy is like 9 feet.
9 feet tall. There was the best was there was like this break, and Brunson gets it. And you remember the play I'm talking about? And it's just those two.
Yeah, it's just dribble it out.
And Wemby got the goaltend. And it truly looked. So the other night when I was watching games, my kids came. We have a mini goal in the upstairs, and my daughter is like, I want to play. And so she starts playing with my son. And I look over at him and I'm like, bro, let her score like once. And he's like, no. And so she's like trying to make moves. I mean, he's swatting the ball all over the game room. Like, she has no chance. She'll never score. They're playing on a mini hoop. He's almost 15. Okay. And there was that moment yesterday where I was like, that reminds me exactly of what I was watching the other night, where it's like, if Jalen Brunson goes to the basket and Wembanyama's there, he would never score. Like, never. No. It would never happen. It was that level of ridiculousness where it's like, okay, just swat it away, swat it away, swat it away. He's like 2 feet taller than him.
So what frustrates me about Wembanyama is not the shot selection or whatever I was talking about earlier and still think it should change. It's he gets credit for blocks. He had 4 blocks in this game. But his impact is like so much more than 4 blocks. You know what I mean? Because it's like he reminds me sort of like a really hard-hitting linebacker, like Vontaze Burfict. You know what I mean? Or like Lawrence Taylor, like Ronnie Lott. And you're the receiver coming across the middle. You're just so cognizant of where that human is and what can happen to you if you continue.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like Wembanyama is. It feels like someone gets by their guy and they're going to the cup and they're like, I'm going to do what I do. It's like, oh, nope, there is Wembanyama. I'm not going to do what I normally do. Let's reevaluate this whole entire process.
Thus, how amazing Mikal Bridges is in this game. Because it's not only the threes, but then he starts hitting all these mid-range things, and it's all like, hey, do you have a guy that can make all of these shots from 10 to 15 feet and then the three? Because what we're not going to do is get within 6 feet of the basket, because if we get within 6 to 8 feet of the basket,
good point,
then there's that guy.
That guy is there.
And then you have somebody like Bridges who just goes absolutely nuclear. I mean, as a Knicks fan, you had to be on absolute cloud 9 watching him, and how he has come along throughout the month of December, really come into his own as this hybrid of the Suns Bridges and the Nets Bridges.
It's interesting watching Bridges. There was so much discussion about his shot and the hitch in his shot. They changed his shot. Remember, Anthony Edwards was talking to him about it and blah, blah, blah. And he was, he's like, for 755 in the preseason or something. It was like all this discussion about his shot. And when it doesn't go in, it looks so broken and so weird. And you're like, how is this man a professional basketball player? But when it does go in, you're like, oh, he's just a shorter Kevin Durant. Like, I mean, how can you ever stop this man? When it does go in, when it's working, because he gets the ball so high above his head before he starts his release, and he's got such long arms that when it looks wrong, it looks so wrong. But when it looks right, you're like, oh yeah, 5 first-round picks? I would have traded 7 first-round picks for this guy. This is what they want.
And I think you have to have just incredible promise about how you're playing on Christmas Day. And it wasn't some kind of monster Brunson game. It wasn't a monster
he wasn't
Towns
good.
game.
He was not. Brunson was not good.
But this is the kind of stuff you need, right? You need when we get to playoff time, there's only so much that you can load up against. There's only so much you can load up against. And when you have another guy that can do that, that's when you get to the playoffs and it's like, all right, there's that third guy that's getting like he's the man tonight. And so I think the more often you can have the big OG Anunoby nights or the big Mikal Bridges nights, it gives you confidence that if you can make it into the playoffs healthy. Meanwhile, by the way, Bridges has played like the most minutes in the NBA. He's got all these crazy December stats. He has been great. Like shooting from the field, shooting from 3, the whole thing. And so that it felt like that was a culmination of kind of what has been happening in December. Obviously, it was extreme, but the point is he's been great throughout this month.
It was another thing I always want to give a shout out to is it's the offensive rebounding, because I think that Hartenstein brought a lot of that for the Knicks, and they got 17 offensive rebounds. And Josh Hart, we all saw down the stretch, got 2 of them. I think that was really important for them. And I think that they're making a concerted effort to feature Bridges in this way. because I think everyone else is comfortable in their role. I think Towns is obviously, we don't have to celebrate him. We have so many times, but it does feel like the team as a whole, because they are so close and have their history, is kind of saying it to each other without saying to each other, let's get McCall going. Let's get him going, because that's what's really going to help make this sort of engine hit top speed. And I thought that was interesting. Another thing I found interesting is after the game, Wembanyama was like, he was really reflective. When you listen to him speak, he's very like introspective. He's more depth in his answers than you get from a lot of superstar players. And he was like, he's like, we're not ready. He said that we're not ready. We're not ready to win these type of games. And I was looking at him, I was like, man, you're not. Like Chris Paul doesn't like, with like, it just feels like this team is one of those teams that's just right in the middle, not bad enough to be a top pick and not good enough to contend and maybe win a good regular season game here and there. But they're just kind of nowhere.
No, this is the trajectory of a lot of good teams that end up being great, which is that first year, you're right around 500. And then you explode. So this
is the second year. So all
right,
I
would buy stock in next year's Spurs, is what I would tell you. This happened with a lot of great young teams with young superstars. That you have that first year where you're closer to 500, you're around Midland team. Like, you're not bad, but you're also not really good. And then you take the huge leap next year. I would buy stock in next year's Spurs.
Well, I would also agree with Wemby that they're not ready. They're not ready.
But that's part of it.
Yeah, they're not a serious team right now. No. But just very briefly, like, I'm done. I'm done with the Simpsons football game. I'm done with the Disney basketball game. I don't know who this serves. Even my kids, I'm like, hey, kids, check this out. My 9-year-old daughters, they're like, Dad, this is stupid. I'm going to go back and play with my toys. I'm like, I know. I don't know who this is for. Chris Paul is Mickey and Josh Hart is Daffy Duck. Like, what are we doing?
I did think it was fun. The whole Towns as Goofy thing was funny to me.
Just because he does kind of look like Goofy, like the way he stands.
But they're like, down the lane, Goofy.
Yeah.
And so I've got a weird take on this.
What's that?
I don't mind it being existing. And I think sometimes the clips are funny. I'm not going to sit there and watch it. I don't think that there's a bunch of kids that are sitting around going, oh, no, I like football. But I will say, I do like the kid versions. I like the Nickelodeon versions of the NFL
hybrid
ones. I got it. It's a hybrid.
That's more of a hybrid of like reality plus a little like accoutrement, which I enjoy more than this.
I would have that. I think that's more of the mode to get the kids involved, is that kind where it's like actually the real basketball, but like these kid flares to it. And the original one that they did in the London game, the Toy Story game, I thought was awesome. I liked the toy, and then the ones that have followed. So either make them all Toy Story with Buzz Lightyear and Woody and that whole game, because I just thought that was so unique and so cool. And it was like, you set up toys and you're playing this game. And so I liked that. But yeah, the other ones, they have not held my attention. I'm
gonna experience it.
And maybe that was just a one-time thing that I liked it because that was the original one.
Toy Story. I'll say this before we move on. I think like many things in 2025, you guys, someone out there will ingest the entire 2-hour experience. Just send me the best 10 seconds on my timeline. You know what I mean? That's how I consume most media. It's like, just send me the best 10 seconds and I'll enjoy that. So maybe that should exist and I'll just experience it like that, because I'm not sitting down and watching a whole game like that. And my kids have no interest in it.
The other two games that we have not mentioned were not as good as the 3 that we have, but we had Wolves and Mavs. We only got 16 minutes of Luka. And boy, by the time that thing was over, there were already reports from Tim McMahon and Shams Charania about how scared the Mavs are about this situation. And you and I have talked about this a lot, and it's been an ongoing theme of the mismatch for many years, where I've said these soft tissue things, it's never sooner than what they say. So calves, groins, hamstrings, I'm always petrified. And this one made it even worse because within an hour's time, they're telling me I should be petrified about what the situation is going to be with Luka Doncic.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm a medical expert as well.
I understand.
Yeah, and I actually have 5 or 6 ER doctors on my rec league basketball team. So that makes me not only a medical expert, but a sports medicine expert, top of the field. I watched the Luka injury many times because I was concerned. I was like, well, let me see this play again. There's a jiggle. Watch it again. If you're listening to this podcast, when you see it from behind, focus on the left calf.
Oh, you think it tore?
There's a jiggle. There's a jiggle. In my medical sports expert opinion, top of his field, there's a jiggle. I don't know, man. I don't like the jiggle. Don't like the jiggle.
This. I mean, you're taking obviously a huge portion of the season. Look, there's a lot of things that go with this. Huge portion of the season, All-Star, awards, like All-NBA.
Not exactly a guy on top of his conditioning. Not exactly on top of his conditioning.
But
you can't even be on your feet.
But I'm saying it's an
all
all-star.
table.
It's an all-star spot that opens. It's an all-NBA spot that opens. It's an MVP top 5 voting that opens. It's a seed that opens.
Oh, yeah. They can slip into the play-in in like a week and a half. They have played well without Luka. It's a little bit like your Grizzlies. I know that you always want to talk about the Grizzlies all the time, but it's a little bit like that. Like yeah, they lose Ja. That's the engine that that's the straw that stirs the drink or whatever. But, they are successful without Luka. And you saw it last night. With that, they were down by 28.
And it's got to be, you're going to have to be more PJ, more lively. It's just, do you have the guys? It does put, and look, they won that Utah series a couple years ago in the absence of Luka. That was the Brunson breakout for 100 million. Yeah. I got it.
And you remember who was sitting in the front row? Worldwide West. Right there in Utah. Wonder what he's doing there.
But I mean, now that has to be Kyrie. That has to be Lively. That has to be. And we have seen other teams, not the least of which is the Orlando Magic, which we have talked about over and over again. And it's like, bro, they can't stop losing people. They've lost their best players, and they've still found a way to be able to get wins.
Wagner, we should mention.
I know, it's horrible. But they just need to be able to, but they've still found a way for other guys to step up. And so that's what Dallas has got.
We won't address the Magic thing. Let's do a quick 2-second moment of silence for Steve Cerruti. Okay. Let's continue.
Season's not over. You're getting your best players back.
You will. They will.
But it's been tough. But they are the beacon of we can get by in the absence of our best players. And so now Dallas, they're going to have to play differently. But, you're going to find out how much more can PJ Washington do? How much more can, Kyrie Irving bring to the table? How much more can Lively bring to the table? How much more can all of these guys? But still one of the great players that we have in the world. And it's going to be a long time. That's the point, right? It's not getting by for 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
No,
this is getting by for 12 weeks maybe, or whatever the case may be.
It's also like, it's not like a hand injury where it's a bone that has to sort of heal or whatever, and you're just kind of back and better. Like you said, it's a soft tissue thing. It's a guy who's known not to be in the best conditioning at times, and he's going to be off his feet for a very long, extended period of time. And we'll see what happens. But it does give us more Kyrie Irving, which is always more fun to watch.
And you don't want to take anything away. Look, that's a good win for the T-Wolves on national TV. Obviously, you have Edwards as the guy that they are trying to promote in this situation. I watch that game and go, man, when Randall is like moving, passing, throwing the lobs to Gobert and everything, I just feel like no. It's good Randall, bad Randall, as you know. I just feel like there's an awful lot based upon good Randall, bad Randall that is going to determine their trajectory. Yeah. Because when it's good Randall, they're right up there with the others. And when it's, stop ball Randall, then they're
it was. I have. We'll move on very shortly, but I just have one gripe here. End of the game, the Mavs double Anthony Edwards to get the ball out of his hands, and it works perfectly. Next possession, it's tied. Anthony Edwards has the ball. PJ Washington in an ISO. He goes past him to his left. Who's coming over to help? Great timing. Great positioning. But it's Kyrie Irving. They decide not to double. They decide not to have a rim protector around the rim. Whoever you're covering, leave them alone. Leave them alone. But the idea that Anthony Edwards just get to go by his man and take a pretty much uncontested, because Kyrie Irving's only so tall and jump so high, layup at the rim was just so frustrating when you did the right thing the previous possession, which is double it and get it out of his hands. It was very frustrating from a sort of strategic perspective at the end of that game.
Anything you want to mention on Suns Nuggets? I said, as I mentioned, this was the most disjointed of the games by virtue of having 48 free throws in the game. The call wasn't made to those guys.
They weren't in the group chat?
No, they weren't in the group chat.
Yeah. No, they had Android phones, so they didn't
Nobody involved.
They didn't want them in the group chat. We can't have this group chat turn green. We need this to be blue. No Android phones.
You have, Jokic obviously has the numbers once again, but Suns did an amazing job of not letting that assist number for him be
That's
high.
what I want to talk about. And he had 2 assists.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm not going to credit the Suns for that. And I'm not going to blame Jokic for that. That is on Mike Malone, and that is on his teammates. If Jokic plays over 35 minutes in a game and has 2 assists, it's not Jokic's fault. The man wants to pass you the ball. He wants you to cut. He wants to do that. When he gets the ball, he's like, please, someone make a cut that puts me in a position to make a cool pass that gets you a layup. That is his top priority when he goes down the list of things he wants to do with the basketball. And it's so frustrating to watch an entire game go by and no one just decide that they're going to cut when the best passer in the world, maybe ever, has the basketball.
Or they miss the shot when he does pass it to him.
But there wasn't even a lot of that. I was frustrated by it. I was frustrated watching it. I really was.
Got a lot of stay-at-homes, and just if he drops 50 on us, then he drops 50 on us.
But I think he had like 19 shots or something. I don't know. It was a weird Nuggets game, and I'm just looking at Jamal Murray being like, dude, are you injured? Are you hurt? Because you were bad in the Olympics.
I've got a theory on this, though. I've got a theory on this.
Is it related to his sex tape?
It has nothing to do with that.
Oh, no. So I've got a different theory. But
though that is a memorable moment.
We don't have Jamal Furry.
No. Okay. Now every time I'm going to think of you saying that. You've ruined it. I've got theory on this. So he became an NBA champion. Playoff Murray is a real thing and has been amazing in the playoffs.
Not last year. He hit the shots.
I got you. And he's bona fide, though. Like, he's got his ring. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
He's never been an awesome regular season player. Ever. We just care about it now.
But he's been better than this.
Go look, though. There's a reason he's never been an all-star. He has been a much better player. No, it's not
and
injury.
He comes on in the second half of seasons. He's
been a much better playoff performer than a regular season performer.
That's fair to say, but he's been better than this for basically his entire career.
I got
ever since he sort of came on.
I just feel like, once they won and once he was so amazing in the playoffs, people have expected that he's like in a different echelon than he's been as a regular season player. Go look. You don't see a bunch of, there's no 25 point per game seasons in there. He's been what he's been.
Well, he needs to be more. He needs to be more.
There's no question.
All right. You know what? Before we move on, I want to give a shout to somebody. Because I think that this person disappoints and gets disrespected and criticized more than celebrated, and for pretty good reason. But Bradley Beal had a game last night, and he looked good. he had a game. He was moving really well. He was hitting shots. He was like, oh, look at this guy. He looked like someone who, deserved maybe 2/3 of the salary that they're being paid. But he had a game last night in the absence of Devin Booker that I think just needs to be mentioned, because for the Suns team to be a contender or a threat in the playoffs, they need him to do something, because Nurkic is just not doing anything.
Enough that you would think that could be a piece to a Butler deal? Did he impress you that much?
Here's the thing about all these Butler deals.
I'm only bringing it up because the Suns
I'll
came
say
up.
This, but why would the Heat be like, do you know what? I'm in the business. We're in the Bradley Beal business.
I don't know.
Let's bring him on.
I don't know. You were just on his nuts, and you said you didn't want Butler long term.
Because he had a good game. Yeah. No, I'm not. No, the Heat are not trading Jimmy Butler for Bradley Beal. No.
I just said as a piece of it.
And they have no picks.
Okay. All right.
They had to use all the picks to get Bradley Beal.
It's Christmas time, and we're going to list off 3 gifts. 3 gifts that we are happy about in the NBA.
That the NBA has given us.
That the NBA has given us.
NBA has gifted us with this year.
All right, we can go through these quickly.
Yeah.
My first one. And you're spoiled, being a New York guy. My first one is Mike Breen.
Oh, double bang yesterday.
That was not only the NBA putting its best foot forward, that was Mike Breen putting his best foot forward. That felt like such a huge game because Mike Breen was at absolute peak of powers. Here's the end of the game and 3 of the big shots.
Curry gets it back in the corner, heaves up a 3. Oh, he put it in! Steph Curry knocks it down! 1-point game! 12.2 remaining. Looking. Curry gets free. Curry puts up a 3. Bang! Bang! James using the screen. He's covered. Reeves has it. 5 seconds to go. Reeves on the drive. Inside layup. He banks it in! With 1 second remaining. No timeouts. Here comes Curry. Launches at 3/4 court. Oh! Off the mark. And the Lakers win a thriller.
I mean, I don't know how anybody could listen to that and not smile listening to it. And this guy has been, there's no Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson anymore.
Nope.
And then they switched him out, and he was doing it with JJ Redick last year. Yep. Now this year they've thrown it with Doris and Richard Jefferson, and it's like the partners can change, and it doesn't make any difference. This guy is the best. I love Mike Breen. Love him.
I also love Mike Breen, and I am lucky to be able to get more Mike Breen than most. And I'm also I'm unlike my peers in the sense that whoever announces the game doesn't really change my enjoyment of it. You know what I mean? Like, I just like the sport. And I think all the announcers are good enough that I'm enjoying it. So, like, I'm not one of those be like, oh, we got Reggie Miller on this one. That sucks. I'm like, I don't care. Reggie Miller's great. Everyone's great. I'm pretty easy to please when it comes to announcers. But Mike Breen has gotten a little bit of that Marv Albert thing where his voice tells me that this is a big game.
Yes.
Like, just hearing his voice heightens the game for me. It's like Pavlovian. It's just like, this is a big game. And Marv Albert always did that to me based on my history with sort of like NBC on Saturday or whatever. And I'm just going to very briefly say something that's going to get me in a lot of trouble. That's a very unpopular opinion. I can move on to my first gift. Don't love Clyde Frazier doing the games with Mike Breen.
What?
Don't love it. Don't love it. Let's move on before I get in trouble. Before they put this one on Twitter. This is going to be the breakout. You know what I mean? Jacoby hates Clyde Frazier. I don't love it. It's not for me. It's not for me. It's not for me. Not for me.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I said it out loud.
Move on.
All right,
Move on.
We'll move on.
Move on.
The gift that, frankly, is one of the most exciting things for me in the National Basketball Association is Joe Mazzulla just being an absolute psychopath. And we'll go through this quickly, but I've got a top 5 Joe Mazzulla quotes. And people change when they win a championship. You've been in this business a long time. Like, people behave differently after they become champions. And I think we're really starting to like learn who Joe Mazzulla is now that he's got a little more freedom to sort of like, job security and a little bit more like emotional confidence. So here's just some quick ones. So he told Sam Hauser about getting fouled. Quote, "There's no fouls in a war. You either die or you don't." Asking about having a target on their backs, being champions, quote, "People are going to say the target is on our back. I hope it's right on our forehead and between our eyes. I hope I can see the red dot." Okay. And this is what he said about robbing Fenway Park, which is where the Boston Red Sox play, in the movie The Town. Quote, "If we ever decided to rob Fenway, I was like, we could probably really get away with this." This is my favorite part at the end. "How could you not go to Fenway and think you couldn't rob it?" I'm just going to say something, Joe Mazzulla. I've been to Fenway Park, I don't know, 100 times. Never once did I was like, this is how I would rob this place. Never once did that cross my mind. Number 4, on what we can do better as a fan, for the fans as a league, quote, "The biggest thing that we can rob people of from an entertainment standpoint is you can't fight anymore. I wish you could bring back fighting. What's more entertaining than a little scuffle?" And finally, the number 1 Joe Mazzulla quote is from Mazzulla himself.
What kind of pressure do you feel to kind of maximize this opportunity that you have with this group?
Zero, no pressure. We're all going to be dead soon, and it really doesn't matter anymore, so there's zero pressure. You're either going to win or you're not, and when you win, you try to forget about it a week later, and when you lose, you try to forget about it a week later. And so it's not pressure, it's an opportunity, and we have an opportunity here over the next few years, however long we're together. We've said this in the past, like we have an opportunity to carry the organization forward, to double down on the tradition and the history of what this organization has. And what else would you expect than someone expecting you to win all the time? I wouldn't want someone expecting me to lose all the time. That would be debilitating.
We're all going to die soon. I just realized this going through these quotes. They all are either about dying, fighting, or robbing something. I don't know what that means, but I just realized that.
All right, this is insane because you listed off your 5 Mazzulla quotes.
If you're going to name some that I didn't get to.
No, I have 3 off the top of my head. That's how crazy this is.
There's a lot.
You have, "I'll never wear this ring. It's too big."
Love it. Great point.
Gaudy. Didn't like the title ring. "The court tastes like blood" when he went down and kissed it. Right? Yeah.
He's the best.
You have "the court that tasted like blood." And then what was the other one? There was one other that was I don't watch games. I don't watch the NBA.
Never, why would I watch NBA games? Why would I do that?
I kind of agree with the fans. I don't watch NBA. I don't like to watch them.
Don't like them. They're not. I'm going to watch The Town again for the 400th time.
I don't like to watch NBA games.
I love that I think that winning a championship is really going to let us get to know him better, and I'm thankful for that. That's a great gift that the NBA has given us this year. What's your second one?
Yuki Kawamura.
Oh, I love him.
Look at the shirt I got for Christmas.
Oh, my God. What a god.
That's my Yuki shirt. My wife got me this for Christmas. You want to talk about a girl that knows you.
Just knows you.
Oh, she knew because she's heard us go, Yuki, Yuki, Yuki. Yuki Kawamura has brought me so much joy this year. He is listed at 5'8", and I would argue that that's not true. He's listed at 159 pounds. I'd argue that that's not true. And Yuki Kawamura, for those that don't know, has got a 2-way deal with the Memphis Grizzlies. At the end of games, home and road, if the Grizzlies are up big, you will hear Yuki chants raining down from the crowd. We need guys like this, right? And he's not just a victory cigar, but at the end of games, when teams are winning, and it's almost like, you got used to it's like the walk-on at your high school or college or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, here's this guy who, against all odds, is in the NBA, does not look like he should be in the NBA because he's 5'0" 100 and nothing, and had this unbelievable game in the Olympics where he leads Japan in an overtime game that they lost. He had 29 or 27, 7-6 against France and kind of broke out after he had been playing professionally in Japan. He makes this impression, gets this two-way deal with the Grizzlies, has been great when he has played for the Memphis Hustle in the G League. And then several times throughout the year as Memphis is running away with the game, you hear the Yuki chants raining down. And I will say, they are the biggest cheers when he makes a shot or he steps back on somebody or he throws a pass or whatever. It is electric city. Yuki Kawamura. I mean, we've had like the Taco Falls. You remember when he was in Boston and people would be like, we want taco.
Yeah,
right?
There's something different about, like a
little guy.
A 5'6" Japanese dude. You know
the
what
other
I mean?
thing is, the other thing is, it's now there are no little guys anymore. It is so hard to make it as a small player in the NBA. I love that guy at Toronto, Jamal Shed, who I'm going to get to see tonight, who played at Houston last year. But even this year, I was looking at Jonathan Gavoni's, top 100 list or whatever. Go look at like the top 30 picks, the top 40 picks. Bro, they're all like 6'6" or taller.
Of course.
We are hurtling towards the absolute abolition of the small guard. Like the 6'2", you know how amazing you're going to have to be 6'2" and be in the NBA in 5 years?
I also just want to recognize something. I know we're not supposed to talk about it in 2024 or whatever, but he's a Japanese guy. Like, it's not like the NBA is littered with Japanese people either. So it's like that's a whole nother sort of like underdog story, which makes it super fun. He's tiny. He's from a country that isn't a feeder system for the National Basketball Association. And he's sort of like got this huge smile on his face. And when you hear about the interactions between him and Ja, you know more about this than me, but like the way he's sort of like learning about the culture, he's just like so fun loving and adorable. And when they were curb stomping the Warriors, I was like, great. We get at least 12 minutes of Yuki, and I texted you, and you're like, he's at the G League showcase. And I was so pissed. But then I looked what he did at the G League showcase, that he had like 27 with like 5 for 7 from 3.
Plus, his name is Yuki.
Yuki. Yeah, he's perfect. He's absolutely perfect.
And if anybody tunes it in, he raises the roof. Somebody taught it to me. So when they make a shot, he raises the roof. Like, everything about it is awesome.
And as far as he knows, raising the roof is the coolest thing he can do. As far as he knows. He has no idea. I love him so much. Yes. So let me tell a quick story for people that don't watch the Chris Vernon show every day, which they should. Is Chris is really just like a media plant for the Grizzlies organization. And he's got this studio, which is part of like the whole spread of buildings that the Grizzlies work out of. And one day he's doing a show, and the entire Grizzlies team just storms the live show while Chris Vernon is on the air with his partners. And Ja's there, and Brandon Clark is there, and Jaren Jackson and Bane and all the stars.
One guy cared about.
Chris is just like, where's Yuki? Like, you can hear him. Ja Morant is on the camera, and Chris Vernon is just screaming, where's Yuki?
Where's Yuki?
Where's Yuki? All of you other people, you all-stars, you future Hall of Famers, get out of the way.
Get out of
Bring me Yuki. That is how Chris Vernon views the roster of the Memphis Grizzlies.
What's your next one?
I'm going to go quickly through this one. It's just something that it's hard for me not to complain. And when I used to have cable and I had League Pass, just all of the games, you can push guide and all the games are right there next to each other. It's so easy to flip around between them. And, you know what? If you want to check in on the Monday Night Football game or the Thursday Night Football game while you're watching NBA games, you can just easily just click the last button. Remember that button? I love that button so much.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can just go between two games so quickly and seamlessly. And like, even with the NBA app, there's like 4 clicks and the little basketball wheel goes around. It's hard to sort of surf between games so much, which is one of the gifts that I love that the NBA app has given us is NBA Crunch Time. It's basically red zone for basketball when there's a bunch of games going on. I've got a lot of notes about how it can be better. And some of it I understand is because of the regional sports deals, and I don't want to get into the legalese of all of that. But I just want to say thank you for having someone watch all the games and just bring me the best of it. It's very, very helpful, and I appreciate that gift that you've given me, NBA.
Next step is obviously 2-box, 4-box.
Yes,
right?
it's
like
not that hard.
Yes.
They do it, but they don't do it very well. I've got a lot of notes, and I'll give them to you for free, Adam Silver.
Okay.
Hershey.
Fair enough. Last one, a gift. All right, so this is not necessarily NBA related, but it is us related. My gift, and we're not going to get too sappy, but is you and Jesse, because I am, anytime that you have time off at the end of the year, which I have these last couple of days, right? And then you have Christmas, and then you have your family over and whatever. It's a real time of reflection. And for all the listeners out there, everybody knows what went on with this show earlier this year. And, there was a part of me, not to get too self-indulgent, but I was for sure down in the dumps, like really worried, because you spend 8 years or whatever it is building something, and then you get a phone call that it's gone. And it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. And for those that don't know out there, this, I was going through all that as a bad, week and a half, 2 weeks, because I don't know what the future is going to be. Bill has assured me, hey, we want you to stay and we want to keep the show going or whatever else. But Jacoby, was going to be one of the guys that was going to fill in with us. And when I got on a text with him, he flew straight down to Memphis. When you hear him mention Memphis, because he came here and flew straight down to Memphis, wanted to see me in person, and we went and ate, and then the next day came on my show, and then we did the Mismatch together. And, I had this, everything in my life had become like routine, and the way I do this and the way I do that. And this, obviously this show twice a week has been part of my life. And then it's all gone. And the minute I met up with you in Memphis, I remember driving home that night, and I think I even texted Jesse, and I was like, this is going to be okay. Everything, because I know he was scared too. We don't know what's going to happen. And so, as you've been around media for a long time, things are going to happen. And sometimes things that you think you never envision are going to be different, or you're going to have some kind of major switch, do take place. And that's exactly what happened. And I remember texting him being like, this is going to be okay. And I cannot thank you enough, because, I don't, it's not like we sit on here and talk about our feelings or our private lives all that much, but I was truly down in the dumps. I was really, I hadn't had anything happen in a long, long time where I was really scared about something, or it's man, I put all this work into this and now it's just all what's going to happen with here. And you being available, you wanting to do it, you being willing to do it, and then it all working out the way it has. There was certainly a moment where these last couple of days I was sitting back and I was just, and I texted you last week, where I was just so intensely grateful that this worked out the way it has, and that I've got you, and I get, and Jesse's still with us, and that everything worked out. And now it's so much fun, and I love you, and I love Jess, and I love getting to do this show. And, I guess there's always that time where it's hey, man, this could be taken away from you. And I really thought hey, man, this might be over for me. And so I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, and I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for Jesse and the listeners that stuck with us throughout this entire thing. And so just a huge thank you to both of you guys, because, anytime you get to the end of a year, and this is the last show I'm going to be doing this year, everybody does a lot of reflection. And this was a much different year. Every year, kind of, the last several have just been a routine, and it's just part of it. And it's oh, okay, and then I'll get back to work on Monday. But this one, there's a huge curveball thrown in the middle of it. And there's always that fear of what's going to take place. And man, oh man, I mean, I cannot tell you how much unbelievable feedback, not to blow you up too much, about you and about us and about the new version of the Mismatch that I have gotten, that has just made me feel so great and so happy about how it all happened and how it all turned out and how it was truly all okay. Everything's going to be fine.
That's great. And there's a couple things I want to piggyback on top of that and say. Number one is one thing I hate is if I say I like your jacket and then you say back to me, oh, I like your jacket. It feels a little inauthentic. So I'm not going to do the thing where I celebrate you now. I'll do that down the road. You know what I mean? Whatever. I'm like, oh, those are nice shoes. Like, oh, you have nice shoes too. It's like, well, you don't mean that. You're just saying that because I said it to you. So I'll get you down the road. But the couple lessons from this is like, anyone who's followed my career knows that I've had some high highs and low lows, and I had a very, very stable life at ESPN. And that boat got rocked, and I got thrown out of it, and I was amongst the waves trying to keep my head above water. And that's happened a couple other times since then. And I think that's one of the ways that you felt sort of outside the boat for a little while there. You don't know if someone's going to come by and pick you up, or you can just swim to shore or whatever. And that's a really bad feeling. And it usually works out. You know what I mean? That's one lesson. Yeah. The second lesson I wanted to tell listeners in regards to this is get on the plane and go there. You know what I mean? Like there's some saying it's like 90% of life is just showing up. And it's like super cliche, but it's cliched for a reason. You know, it's like when I told you I was coming to Memphis, you're like, are you serious? Like you thought I was like joking or something. I was like, no,
I did.
I'll be there, dude. You know, I think that in the world of Zooms, in the world of Zooms and all this stuff, man, people are doing so much stuff virtually and like not really, nice to meet you. It's like, no, you don't meet somebody. You got to meet somebody, you know?
And this is here's a little inside baseball. I'll tell you, you and I knew each other, but had not been around each other. We knew each other as media people.
Yeah,
right?
I was a fan of the Mismatch.
And so I know that you have known Bill and House forever. And you text me that, and I text them, and both of them said, shut the F up. And I'm like, no, I think he's serious. And they're like, bro, he might be. Jacoby is a maniac.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right. And then the next week I text Bill and I said, he's really coming to Memphis. And his answer was shut up. And I'm like, I'm serious.
Yeah.
And after you came here, I called Bill Simmons and I said, bro, we're not doing tryouts for this spot. I said, you can do all the tryouts you want. You can put me with all the people you want. And I'm going to call you in the end and tell you I want Jacoby. So how about we just cut it? And he's like, if you're good, I'm good. And I was like, let's go. That's it.
You know how I feel. I appreciate this so much. And I think it's really important that we end this show appropriately, which is why I just want to share one of my gifts that the NBA has given us, which is like, if there's something about, like a good player makes everyone uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And it's like, it just puts pressure on you and you always know where they are. Like Wemby we were talking about earlier. And you know that they're going to get the ball and make the shot like Steph, like we were talking about earlier. And there's a player who's emerging in this league that just makes everyone uncomfortable, especially those of us in the media. Just play the clip, Jesse.
It'll be Grady Dick coming up short. Dick stays out there. Najee all over him. And he got it. Grady Dick's third bucket of the game. Brings it back to 19.
Let's just call it Grady. Let's just call it Grady for the rest of the game.
You're killing me, you know.
I mean, just watching a Dick get bigger and stronger and more aggressive as it gets older is just one of the greatest developments in just anyone's life, really. And I'm just so glad that the NBA has given this Dick to celebrate.
Okay. And you don't know this yet. You don't know this yet because, we were so caught up in the Christmas games and everything that was going on. But I've got a confession to make. Jacoby, it's December 26th, the morning of December 26th, when you were recording this. I am going to see Dick tonight. The Grizzlies play the Raptors at FedEx Forum. And I have to go through a pregame show. And I have to go through a pregame show and a postgame show tonight.
I hope he scores 50.
Knowing that I'm going to see Dick.
I hope he gives you 50. So you have to talk about Dick all night.
I know. I have been so worried about this evening. I have been so anxious about Dick coming to town that it's tonight. I swear. Tonight. Go look at the schedule.
I believe you're going to see a lot of Dick tonight.
Unbelievable. Thank you to our executive producer, Jesse Lopez, as always, and Jacoby. I'll talk to you next week.